And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
Cathy Carlton, who was grew up in Massachusetts and did quite a bit of theater in New York, came to Los Angeles 20 or so years ago and became part of you'd say the architecture of the LA theater scene, particularly through Theater of Note, where she served as a performer, a producer, and their public relations manager for a while. About a decade ago, she returned to her hometown to take care of her father and has since this year been invited back to perform on the New York stage. And she joins us to discuss days theater, current and in our recent history. Cathy Carlton, welcome to Animal Farm.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me on.
You are a stalwart veteran in the trenches of LA theater from what, a decade ago, even?
Oh, at least more.
More. You worked at a couple of companies, but primarily you were a company member of Theater of Note.
Theater of Note. I've also worked with Ghost Road.
And Ghost Road, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you served as a press rep for Theater of Note. You have served as a
did,
producer.
Actually. Yeah, I was. I acted with them, and then they asked me to do press for them. So I did most of their press for a long time, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you were a producer there.
Yes.
As well as
yeah, and I produced
a performer. And it's from you that I've received some of the most telling, the most memorable lines about Los Angeles theater, such as a Theater of Note, changing the world 7 people at a time. That has been an eternal quote.
Another backstage favorite was, I think we were charging $25 at the time. And so at intermission, I always said, oh, another fine night in the American theater. That'll be $25, please. And so the intermission riff was, and that'll be $17.50, please. So we always were quite the family at theater, and are quite the family at Theater of Note. They just actually, and I'm so grateful for this, they just actually voted me in as an associate member. So I'll always and forever be a member of Theater of Note.
And yet you have been living in the East Coast in Massachusetts, and you came to LA from New York, where you worked in the Village,
yep.
Theaters in the Village, and you have found, to all of our delight, you have been invited back to perform next year in January in a play called the Dog Play?
The Dog Show.
The Dog Show. The
Dog Show, yeah. And thrilled about it.
And it's going to be produced by Ivan Fote, who is the playwright, and it is being produced at the Players Theater.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
In the Central Theater.
Downtown around Minetta Lane down there.
So Minetta Lane. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I came, my friend Jenny Webb, who ran the, I believe now defunct, Seedlings program at Theatricum out in Topanga Canyon, contacted me and said, oh, we're doing this play, we're reading this play, Ivan's a playwright. Oh, it would be a great role for you. And I said, oh, well, let me take a look at the script. And I read it, and it's just a beautiful piece about family. The main character, one of the main characters is the mother, whom I'm playing. Something terrible has happened in the family, and curtain up, and mom is in the prison hospital. And so this dysfunctional family comes together to try to figure out what the hell happened here. Nobody really knows what happened. This horrific thing happened. So I said to Jenny, yeah, I'll come out for that. And she never thinking that I would, come out for a reading, but I did. And we had a great time, great week up in Topanga with the reading with Ivan, who's a terrific playwright, and a great cast. One of my colleagues, Connor Murphy, is also in the LA cast, will be coming to New York for this run in January, and I'm thrilled. And it's a character that, I mean, I am pretty ensconced in Western Massachusetts at the time. I'm working at Hampshire College, whom I love, and I love my job, and I love what I do there. So, I mean, I wouldn't uproot everything and go to New York for a part other than this. Let me just say that. She's a beautiful, mysterious character that may or may not have done this horrific thing, and she's still a mystery to me. So I like people that are mysterious. Why did this? I still don't know myself. I don't know. So I am going to really have a great time working on the great I don't know. I don't know. And maybe I'll find out and maybe I won't, but I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
You hold an executive position at Hampshire College in Massachusetts.
I am the executive assistant to the president of Hampshire College.
And yet you would think that that's a pivotal. You're in for the college. That's an extremely important position. And yet, how long are you going to be away? And they're absolutely fine.
They are so great. I love them so much. I love what Hampshire College is doing right now. The new president, he's not new anymore, it's a couple of years now. Ed Wingenbach has done such a great job, and senior leadership has done such a great job of pulling this little liberal arts college out of a lot of dysfunction and financial mess into one of the leaders, I think, in American education. It's how American education should be going, in my opinion. So I'm totally devoted to them. And they were great about this. I talked to Ed a couple of weeks ago and I said, oh, sit down, I'll tell you something. I'm going to go to New York, I'm going to do this thing. And Ed was formerly an actor. He totally got it. He said, yeah, whatever we need to do to support you, whatever you work remotely when you're in New York. Probably when I'm in the run, I can come home for non-show days, 2-3 days a week, and be at Hampshire, because I want to be at Hampshire. I don't want to let that fall through. So I will be doing both things at the same time. But the college has just been great and right behind me, and so excited, and they're all coming.
And you have had your own challenges with health and during the pandemic. And that was, you could say, another challenge for the college, for one of their executives. Yeah. You were extremely ill with COVID.
I was.
And you were hospitalized. You were in the intensive care unit for
a long time.
For an extended period of time. Did they intubate, or I don't think they...
We were getting to that point where we were talking about it. And the doctors, give you and I think not to be morbid about it, but the doctors do, kind of say, yeah, you could die, and how do you want to roll with this? And
not in your grave.
Yeah, I said, well, I would like you to make every effort possible. When they asked me if I wanted to be intubated, and airlifted to Springfield and blah, 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 blah. But then, something switches off and you kind of like say, no, not today, not this night. No. I started kind of doing what they were telling me to do. It's like, sleep on your stomach, Kathy. So blah, blah, blah. And that's uncomfortable. Who wants to do that? Mm-hmm. But I started to do that kind of the next day. And I started to, I don't know. I don't know what happens. Decide to live. I don't know. And I improved. Luckily, I had great friends, obviously from the college, great friends. My community here is just wonderful, and would bring me my laptop. I said, I need my laptop, I need to work. So I was working for ICU until Ed made me not. You can't work from ICU. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I take it you were not lying on your stomach while you were
no, well, I could have. But it wasn't a big deal. It was easy for me to work, and I felt better, connected, and I wanted to make sure things at the hospital, at the college were fine, but Ed made me stop. And like I said, like I told Ed, if I can work remotely from ICU, my friend, I can work remotely from backstage. So no worries.
How long were you hospitalized?
A month the first time, about 10 days in ICU. And then I came out and I was re-hospitalized like a week later, and that was like 5 or 6 days. So I'm, currently dealing with long COVID now, but
What's going on with long COVID? What are your symptoms?
Nobody knows anything, right? I mean, nobody knows anything. I've been going to the Boston clinics, the long haul people at Brigham Women's, and while all the doctors are great, the symptoms are still, I have a constant cold, as you can hear. Weird, like cluster stabby headaches, which I never really was prone to headaches. Your balance is wonky, so I, tend to list sideways. That all your joints continue to ache, and weird rashes are like happening. Like even when I get a flare up like this cold, these rashes come back. It's like, oh, that's COVID, because that's what happened when I was really ill. I had the rashes. So if my immune system is down, then the rashes come back. Yeah, it's really weird. So I really stopped going to doctors now, other than, I was in the emergency room a couple of days ago, but because there's no answer to it. There's just simply no, they don't know. They're running a whole lot of tests and they're taking a whole lot of information down, but nothing, forthcoming. I have a series of EEGs scheduled for next week. I think I'll cancel. They want to just check what's happening in the brain. They want to check levels and like that. No, I think I'll cancel. So, yeah. So yeah, so I lost a year. I feel like I lost a year to COVID. Thankfully, I'm doing work that I love and engaged in, and so that was a huge help. And I'm writing, and I wasn't really able to. Well, you can't perform much here in this neck of the woods. I'm equity, and there's not a lot of equity work up here. So the year went away as far as being artistically inclined. So I'm thrilled to be actually feeling better and working on more projects this year.
But you did actually have a book published.
I did.
During the pandemic.
Well, it was a little bit before 2019, December it came out. So yeah, you're right. I had a signing in New York and a signing here locally in town, and those were in the 2 months, like right before the pandemic. So luckily that had happened before the pandemic, but leading right into the pandemic. So yeah, so then I'm working on the next one, and we'll be obviously talking about, some of the things that happened to me during the pandemic.
And what was the first book about? It was a collection of stories, of essays.
It was a series of essays, and it was about coming back to Massachusetts, the small town of Massachusetts, to take care of my father, who had dementia. And I hadn't been back to this town since I graduated high school. I graduated high school in 1978, and I was out of here. I was bye-bye. I went immediately to New York to conservatory. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I lived in New York and LA back and forth for 30 years or so, and had to come back because I was the only family member left to take care of my dad, whom I was extremely close to. I was not close to my mother, so there was always an estrangement. So I never really visited a lot. Not really close to my brother. So my brother had also died during that time. So there was literally nobody else. So I'm back in this ramshackle house, falling down around us, with an old man who can't remember where the furnace is when the furnace goes off, like I would know. So yeah, the book is about dealing with that, and about his death, what happened when he died. And about a small town girl going to the big city. I mean, how do you keep them down on the farm when they've seen Paris, kind of like that. And then I'm back all of a sudden dealing with, small town life that I am absolutely not familiar. So it's fish out of water type thing.
So the loss of a parent, particularly your last vestige of family, is pretty intense. And yet there is all kinds of humor interlaced through this.
It was pretty funny. I mean,
wild humor, actually.
Yeah.
So this. I just want to stress, this is not morbid or moribund in any way. It's there's an underlayer of tragedy, but it is underlaying what is a very funny book. How can people still get this book?
It's on Amazon.
Okay, and what's it called?
It's A Bag Full of Kittens Headed to the Lake.
Great. And tell us about your time, just to close out a little bit about doing theater in Los Angeles and what it meant, and how, if it has left any kind of legacy with you or not. Was it just a trivial kind of was it a trivial pursuit, to use the old TV show name, or has it had any kind of lingering effect?
Los Angeles is my home. I think of Los Angeles as my home. The people that I worked with in Los Angeles, I have lasting friendships until the day I die, lasting artistic collaborations until the day I die. I was thinking about it this morning, and the difference between working in LA and working in New York. And I'm thrilled to go back to New York, but the New York plays for me always were, and I think it was just where I was at in life, were always more one-offs. There were more, you audition, you get cast, you do the thing, but it's business. In LA, it's family. You're working with these great ensembles and creating art together. So Theater of Note, Ghost Road, Mark and Catherine, these people I will know forever, and I am looking forward to coming back and working with them again. I'm sure I will.
You're referring to, just to clarify, you're referring to Mark Seldis and Catherine Noon, who
Correct,
together
yeah.
run Ghost Road Theatre Company.
Yeah. And I've had such a great time with them. They've, even when I moved back to New York, Mark and Catherine still kept me in, I think that trilogy that we did on the Oresteia, kept casting me from New York, and Mark would fly me out there, and we'd do a run on the West Side. We did a run up in San Francisco. So, I mean, I'm forever connected to these people, because these are the people I admire the most, and these are the people that I'm closest to. Now, that being said, Ivan, whom I met in LA, I'm really hoping to stay connected with him, and he's a wonderful playwright, and I'm hoping that we can work together in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. I think the lingering question remains, in your absence, a couple of things have happened here. I don't know if you
I've heard a couple of things. Bring me up to speed.
So perhaps the new law that is going to put these membership companies most at risk is called Assembly Bill 5, which you're very, very familiar with, and we've talked about it at length on this on this show and podcast, Animal Farm. But even some of the theaters have said the very mechanism by which membership companies operated was that of everybody sort of did everything, and it was a team, and they did it that way, and they could kind of get away with stipends in exchange for the stipends that were approved under the equity waiver and small theater plan. Was an implicit exchange, an understanding that in exchange for that, for not paying a minimum wage, that the actors, primarily actors who were quasi-volunteering, they were owed something back, and they were owed kind of ownership in the company. They were owed decision-making capacities in the plays that put on, and often the plays were selected to serve those actors.
Mm.
I'm talking about actors because it was actors who were affected under the small theater plan. Now it's everybody is under Assembly Bill 5, designers, stage managers, obviously, because they're actors, with a possible exception of playwrights who own their own plays. So one of the artistic directors said, you know, we're no longer, the whole motives of creation have shifted under this bill because we don't owe the actors, and we're paying them minimum wage. They don't have that kind of say anymore. And that alone, I don't know if that's going to be, it depends on the philosophies of the theater, but that poses kind of, I know a couple of membership companies have just kind of said, we're just going to do what we have to do, what serves the best interests of the company, not necessarily the best interests of the play. And that means they've got to choose things that audiences will gravitate to, rather than companies will get the best working opportunity for, actors will get the best work. That's a subtle shift. I mean, it is subtle. We'll be seeing how that plays out, but it sounds like you were part of those days where you really had a company, where the company was there to serve the members of the company. That's interesting.
You know, art finds a way, and I I hear you, and I hear that. From what I'm hearing from my colleagues is that we're going to find a way. It's you know, this is, and it hasn't been really about serving totally the members of the company. I mean, yes, obviously there's a huge consideration in my day, but at Theater of Note, we're looking for the best and the brightest playwrights. We're looking for new work. We're not doing, you know, remakes of things. We're looking for new original voices, and that will always win, I think, always. Maybe it's me, idealist, but.
Cathy Carlton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And next week, we are joined by Iris Mann. Iris was a child actor on Broadway in the 1950s, and she is currently a theater writer in Los Angeles.
If you enjoy Animal Farm, please support us on Patreon.